Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Hope you're all well if you're tuning into the game, and welcome to my impressions of Dragon's Dogma 2 in 2026. And I just thought I'd take a look at this game, after I think it's been about 2 years since it came out, and just wanted to check it out and talk about a few things and the things I liked about the game and the things I didn't like so much. And maybe shed some light on any of those of you who are looking to pick up the game or have played it, and if you have played it, what are your thoughts on it? So, I've been playing the game for about maybe 30-ish hours. I wanted to give it a good go. I've not really uncovered a lot of the map. All of this is just sea area, and this is kind of most of the play area. Uh, so I've kind of divided it into a few sections. I just want to talk about a little bit about everything. I want to talk about a little bit about a lot of the things with this game and just see if you guys agree or how you guys feel about the game. And while I do that, I'll just probably just play around and let you guys look at some of this crazy action. So one thing I would say is just looking at the game. The game's really looks really good. You know, I think the way the animations look cool. For what they tried to do. I think the character models look amazing. The character creator in the game is probably one of the best I've seen ever. In any game, especially the facial features and the level of detail in the eyes and the skin and everything you can customize. So that's probably one of my favorite parts. Like you could pretty much spend hours just creating different characters and shapes and sizes and you know really get lost in the character creation of this game. So that's definitely one of the highlights of this game. I think the other thing I do like is the armor sets. Like some of the most detailed armor sets, they actually look heavy, and sometimes you play armor sets and they don't look like they look like a skin rather than an item that's actually worn on someone. If that makes sense. I probably didn't explain that too well, but I'm sure you get what I mean. The other thing is the world itself, like the environment. It is really immersive. The textures, the design of the world itself. The way the rocks are placed or the way the mountains look. Even the background, like if you look out into the distance, it looks. I do feel like I'm in this big open world, even though the world isn't as big as what I thought it would be. It gives you the impression that it is much bigger in scale than what it actually is. And to be honest with you, I'm not really a fan of big, massive open worlds where there's not really much to do in the game. I like worlds where, even though the area is not too big, the map or the play area is packed with things to find, bosses, collectibles, if you're into that kind of stuff, quests, maybe dungeons even, that sort of thing. So, I'm not really too fussed about the size necessarily. And oh my god, we got two trolls here. Let's see how we fare with these. Right. The other thing, as I mentioned, as I saw the troll, I'll talk about is the enemy design. So, the large enemies in this game, so much fun to fight. Like, honestly, like once you get used to the game and the different kind of classes, I guess, vocations that there are in this game, they're so much fun to fight. No boss fight feels the same. You know, depending on the type of boss that you're fighting and your level, it's going to feel really good. And you do get this sense that you are fighting this big behemoth-like monster, and you really have to actually activate your brain in the fights. Like you can't just sit back and kind of autopilot the fight. Like you really need to be active in every fight and think about your next step and manage your stamina. I remember there was a moment where I was fighting a griffin and I had to jump off right before the griffin flew off because my stamina was depleting, and if I had fallen off the griffin at height, I would have took fall damage and died. So things like that, you can't just close your eyes and switch your brain off and play the game. So for those of you looking for a bit more of a laid back experience, probably not going to find it here because you are going to have to be, present for those moments. Some of you might find that the gameplay is, oh my god, look at this. You see this? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I just got dragged by a wolf. Now, some of you might find some of these things annoying, you know, but then there'll be a few people who are into these kind of games where the unpredictability of the fights, like being dragged by a wolf, or fighting two ogres, is really going to appeal to you, and that is I'm probably part of that group of people where it really did appeal to me. So I really did like the boss fights. You have also these pawns who help you in the fight, and you get to select the kind of group you want with different traits and builds and powers, and you get to upgrade your pawns. Well, you only really upgrade one pawn, or your pawn upgrades itself as you play through the game. The other pawns you kind of have to switch in and out, based on your level and your level increasing. So that's what I would say. But the pawn system is actually pretty good, and the AI is really helpful in this game, I must say, and it is really immersive. Unlike other games where you have AI partners to help you, in this game they actually help point out things on the map. They help you understand the world better, and those things definitely help in the game because there's no quest markers in the game, and you don't really have any you don't know where a dungeon is or where a collectible is. But the pawns do help you find certain things, especially pawns who have been in other players' worlds, and if in that world they saw something like a dungeon or a collectible, and you end up hiring that pawn, then the pawn will guide you to those locations, which I think is quite a unique mechanic, not really seen in many games, really. It really adds a different kind of co-op element into the game. So that aspect I definitely liked because it was so unique. The other thing what else did I like about the game? I want to talk about what I liked before, I start talking about things I didn't like, to be honest. And then I'll kind of give you a summary at the end. Now, the story of the game, me personally, I'm really into the medieval stuff, like anything fantasy, medieval, in this kind of time period like Witcher or Kingdom Come Deliverance, Skyrim, all this kind of medieval fantasy stuff. I'm just really into it, and just being lost in those worlds is enough for me, and I don't really care too much about how the story is told. As long as the gameplay is good, there's things to grind in the game, and there's good character development, and the story is okay-ish, right? Now, in this game, the story actually is pretty good. I just don't think it's told as well, because some of the character animations aren't the best, right? The way I would describe it is, if you look at the cutscenes, right, it looks like the characters are only moving their mouth and not so much expressions in their face. And I think for a game that came out in 2024, I believe, I would have expected a bit more, technological advancements and a bit more, emotion on the characters' faces and things, just to add a bit more immersion to the story cutscenes and things. But the story itself is pretty good. You play as the Arisen, which is essentially the chosen one to defeat the dragon and bring peace to the world. Really, well, so is if you believe in such things. And the idea is you're kind of going through this, and there's corruption, and there's people who want the power of the Arisen for themselves to rule the land, and kind of like a Game of Thrones kind of world, if you've seen Game of Thrones, those kind of things. So that's kind of the story, and then you have different characters, and then you have side quests and things, with small little sub stories. So there is a story there, right? But the way the story is told is there's very little cutscenes. There's no quest markers, right? The game doesn't really tell you what to do or when to do it or which way to progress, right? So you do have to figure those things out. So I like the story. I think the only thing is it's not, well told. Like, you can get lost in the game and then kind of forget that there was even a story, and then by the time you figure out there was a story, you've pretty much kind of forgotten the plot and you need to refamiliarize yourself again with it. So that can happen. Now, okay, what else was there? Weapons and armors, right? Now, the weapons, the weapons and armors that are there in the game, they're very good. My only complaint is there's not really much variety, right? There's probably five or six, probably four different armor sets for each class, which I was expecting there to be more, you know, but like, I played the game for 30 hours now, and this is my second armor set, and I don't have any reason to keep the previous armor sets because it just becomes obsolete. You know, I've got a stronger piece now, and I don't really need it. The previous armor set that I had from a different town, because this armor set is so much stronger, and once I upgrade this or maybe move to a different town, I'll have another armor set, and then I will use that and probably sell this one. The other thing is there's no transmog, so if you like an appearance of a certain armor set, you can't really equip it onto, you know, another piece of gear because that system just doesn't exist. And I know it's not something that used to exist in many games, you know, many old games, right? But I think the way gaming world is moving, people like to customize their appearance, and you know, the appearance of your character has become such a big thing where you'd expect most majority of games to include that system of a transmog in there. But there isn't, so it's not that big complaint because I mean, even the new armor sets they look really cool. So I don't really feel the need to switch to an older one. But I'm just saying it'd be nice to have, you know. So that's the other thing. Now, right, let's go into things that I found difficult about the game and things that, you know, because I remember when this game first came out, I didn't really play it much. I probably did the tutorial and got to the first town of Wentworth, and that was pretty much it. I kind of just dropped it after that, and I think I just got frustrated with the game. One thing was the lack of fast travel. Now, I know previously I said the world isn't big, but come on, like traversing this whole area on foot, it can take hours, like literally hours and minutes. And majority of your gameplay is going to be just traveling back and forth to places. One thing I found was, you know, I made it from, so this is the first town you get to, so Wentworth, right? You eventually get to Backmetal, and there's a quest which makes you go all the way back here. And if unless you have any ferry stones, which is essentially a stone which you use to fast travel, which the game only gives you maybe three or four. The rest you have to buy, which are really expensive as well. Traveling in this game is very difficult and quite tedious, I would say. Now, I understand why they did it, right? I'm not saying the developers are bad for doing this or the game is bad because there's no fast travel. That's right. The game's a good game, but not having fast travel, it just makes me feel like my time isn't being respected, right? I don't want to play the game and then spend half an hour just traveling to where I need to be. Like, I need to get to the quest area, I need to get to the dungeon, I need to get to a certain zone and just play the game there, right? I don't want to be traveling 30 minutes to fight a boss for, you know, 5 minutes. That's not fun to me, right? It's not fun to me to travel with a really laborious stamina system and get to a boss fight, and the boss fight, you know, takes me 10 minutes, and then I'm traveling half an hour back to get to the town. That's not like the kind of gameplay that I would want. And you know, however, you know, once I did get past that, the game was really fun, and that's something I had to overcome. But I would have just saved hours if there was a fast travel system, and I probably would have enjoyed the game much more and been much more appreciative of what the game was trying to do, right? Now, I think the reason why the developers did that is because the game focuses heavily on player exploration, because there are no quest markers. You know, there's nothing to tell you where a dungeon is aside from your pawns. The game wants you to travel, look around, and you know, explore areas or caves and different routes that you've not explored before, and go over certain areas which you have been on, just in case you miss things. Right, but I feel like they should have left that to the player to decide, not forcing the people to choose. And that's kind of where it feels like that's where the game kind of lost me a bit and just became very frustrating, because if I died, I would have to, you know, go all the way back to the area, walk again, and you know, at that point I would just switch the game off and just be like, right, I'm, I've run out of, you know, mental fortitude to carry on even trying to like get back to that area now. So that's one thing that I think, you know, they could improve. Like, they have got carts, ox carts, which you can use, but you know, they come by every now and then, and they cost money as well, which isn't too expensive. But it's just the fact that you have to try to find them, and that's the only way you could do it, which is a bit annoying. You know, I think majority of big games, you know, The Witcher had fast travel, you know, Elden Ring had fast travel, you know, Crimson Desert has fast travel, right? World of Warcraft has fast travel. Like, they should have included some form of fast travel, right? Like, the ox carts are good, but they're not always available, and you have to wait around, and there's a one-way system. Like, you can't. Let me explain. Let me show you what I mean, right? Like, I can't go straight from where is Batal? Like, I can't go from Batal, which is here, straight to Wernwith. I have to go to Rest Town. I have to go to Rest Town. Then from Rest Town, I have to take another trolley to ox cart to Wernwith, and that can take you about 15 minutes, right? Which I suppose adds to the immersion, and then you have to think about your journey and plan your journey out, and etc. etc. But it's like, I feel like it gets to a point where you try to make something too realistic and it just becomes tedious. Like, I think this is one of the things that one of the criticisms that people had of Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Like, the character walks so slow that it just feels really sluggish, and that's something that, you know, you need to keep in mind. And I wish they could have fixed that, you know, found some way to fix it anyway. Yeah, so that's probably my biggest complaints of the criticism of the game was just the lack of fast travel. And you know, once I got over that, I think I was able to enjoy the game a bit more. So right, let me just kill this ogre off. Where's the hand? Oh no, I almost had it. Wait, have I killed it? Yes, I have. Magic medal. I wonder what a magic medal does. Right, so that's one thing. What else? What else did I want to talk about in this game? Yes, the other thing is the scope of the game, right? In terms of how long the story is, how many, the enemy variety, you know, the number of armor sets. I I expected a bit more from the game, right? Like, I expected the game to be a lot longer, because this game feels like a demo of a full game, because you'll be fighting the same enemies throughout the game. Like, these ogres, I've been fighting these guys from day one. Like, literally, there's ogres and lizards in this game, and then at night time you get some skeletons and zombies here and there. That's literally the enemies that you're fighting throughout the whole playthrough. You know, and they're in the same locations, right? They're in the same locations, which is good because it's predictable, but it kind of ruins the unpredictability of it. Like, yes. Oh my god, what was that? Like, you'd think there'd be like more enemy types in a game like this. The large boss fights are probably my favorite fights, right? Like, I bought this game because of that, and I really wanted to experience those. But they don't occur as often as I'd like them to, right? Because I know some of the developers from Monster Hunter came in to help in some of this gameplay, and it does show that DNA is still there. But if I want to just play a game where I'm fighting big monsters, I'd rather just play Monster Hunter, because that game kind of gives me everything I want, right? Like the armor customizations, the variety of monsters, and each monster has its own kind of armor build, and you can upgrade the armors and weapons as well. I would rather just play that rather than running around, walking around, playing a walking simulator or a, you know, RPG simulator, and you know, the day and night cycle thing, and you know, all this stuff is. It was at times where it was tedious, right? And that's probably my only criticism of the game. The other thing I wanted to mention about the open world is that there's no swimming in this game, so you can't really swim. You pretty much die in the water. The other thing is that a lot of the paths are kind of set out for you. Like you can't really go too far off the path because there isn't really anything there, you know. So what I mean is, you see these big roadways here. This is where you can go, right? So this roadway here, this is where you go. So you're gonna walk the same path every time. So if I want to go back to Wentworth, right, from Rest Town, I'm gonna either get the ox cart and I'm gonna go back on this same path, same path, same path, boom, 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 and just kind of maybe I could go this way, right? But really, that's my choice, and then it's gonna be the same thing again, find the same enemies across the same area, and it's just like, bruh, just give me a fast travel. I don't want to fight it again. If I want to fight it, give me the option. But a lot of these areas are just mountains and cliffs that you can't really climb. You can't really climb much things in this game. Ladders you can. Um, and then every now and then, when you are kind of traversing and you want to get somewhere quick, most likely you're gonna get just absolutely rushed by enemies if you try to run away from them, and then your group's gonna try and fight them if you've got an aggressive type of group. But you can kind of avoid it just by running away if you have enough stamina. And no big monsters come like dragons or drakes or griffins and things like they don't really chase after you too much if you call the group to you. So yeah, that's one thing, and I think those are the things that kind of just made my gameplay a bit. Those are the things I didn't like about the game. That's pretty much it. Yeah. But other than that, like overall, would I recommend the game? I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I would recommend it to those of you who are patient, who would like to, put a few hours into the game to learn what the game's about, who would appreciate, putting effort into learning mechanics, who like to kind of figure out things for themselves rather than too much hand holding. I think those kind of people will like the game. I think for those of you who are looking for a bit more streamlined experience where, the quests and things and what to do is laid out in front of you and you kind of have to do it, those people will find the game and the mechanics a bit frustrating. Because it actually can get frustrating even for someone like me. Like I don't mind long games. I don't mind putting hours to learn mechanics or learn game systems and things. But there has to be that reward mechanism there, or that I don't want to keep doing the same thing again and again, like the traversing. There should be mounts in this game. I think at least maybe a horse. Like at least give me a horse. Just so I can run around on the horse and make things quicker. Uh, but combat feels amazing, very responsive. Even though it may feel like it's sluggish, it's I have to think about the moves and I really like it. It gives me like a Dark Souls kind of vibe, but a bit more options. So I really do like the combat. I can't lie. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the game, and I think that's what kept me coming back to the game. Really, the combat and the gameplay itself. Even though the traveling did put me off about the game, but it is what it is. You can't really like everything. Not everything can be 100%. And I do hope, I do, I do hope that they, do make a third one. And if they do, I will definitely buy it as well. Even though, I'm not sure if I'd like it, I would still definitely buy it. I do have faith in Capcom and the developers. They do make great games. This one was just, it's not, it's very hard because it's one of those games where I want to like it and I want to enjoy it, and I don't want to hate the game. I wish it was better so I'd want to play it more, and I wish there was more of it as well at certain times, to be honest. I think that's probably what I have to say about the game, really, that there was more of it. There was a fast travel system and maybe a mount and things like that, and I wish there was more saves you could make. Like it seems like you can only make one save, and based on that save, that's pretty much it. Like you can't really overwrite it or make a new save or have multiple saves. I don't really understand why they did that, or if it's a server issue. It's a bit baffling to me. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say, really. I mean, I'll probably complete the game. just because I'm like halfway into it and I do want to know what happens in the story. I hope if they make the game again, it's a bit more slightly different, and they've kind of worked on a few things and maybe made it for the masses, I suppose, so that it can get out there and the game can get bigger and have a bit more popularity. But yeah, I hope you guys, understood what I said, and if you didn't, then, let me know what you guys think of the game, or if you agree or disagree with what I said. But anyways, take care guys, and I'll see you on the next one.